This episode is part of a series concerning trans individuals' relationships with religion. The stories and opinions presented in this series belong to the individuals interviewed and are here to provide insights. However, while we are attempting to get a variety of people from different backgrounds and views, these stories and opinions should not be taken as blanket statements for any entire community. Remember, it is always better to ask than to make assumptions. If you're interested in hearing more of these stories, please check out the rest of the series. Thank you. Welcome to the Trans Field Guide. To start with, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Victoria, and I've been on HRT for 1 year.
So I am Jake Ballinger, and I am 10 years into gender transition. I'm an FTM, and my pronouns are he, him, and his.
Hi, my name is Shawna, and I have come from I was born in Iran, so I was born into an Islamic society, and I have been in state since I was 14 years old, and I have been on HRT for over 2 years now, and it has been an experience. The whole thing has been an experience.
All right. Well, hey, I'm Marxel Horace. I'm excited to be back on, answering some cool questions.
What religion were you raised with, if any?
I was raised Anglican, and then my parents went Orthodox.
So I really wasn't raised with very much religion. My parents were not necessarily agnostic or atheist. It just wasn't there. We didn't really have it in our house. I knew that my friends did, and I went to church with a couple of them, but this is not something I did on a regular basis. So until adulthood, I was pretty much raised without religion altogether.
Well, to be more specific on that, I was raised in a family that was not religious, but the general application of religion was Islam. So, there was a lot of beliefs, Islamic beliefs that, went around with, how society functions and how things are viewed. But like I said, my family was never at any point a religious family to be like heavily practicing anything. Actually, both my parents, but mainly my dad, is more of a believer that dogma should not apply, and religion is a very dogmatic set of ideas. So I was raised in that kind of environment, but at the same time I had to deal with the somewhat religious society around me.
My family was completely Christian. My mom's side of the family grew up going through the Church of Christ, and then my dad's side of the family grew up in the Church of the Living God. But either way, it was all about, Jesus and heaven and the traditional, so.
What religion do you follow currently, if any?
Yeah, Catholic, and I am confirmed in the church, so I can get married, and all that other fun stuff.
I would consider myself a non-denominational Christian.
No, I do not follow any religions. I have the beliefs of being a good person and having good intentions, and do right by people, and people will do right by you. There are certain things that are said in different religions that the ones that make sense I incorporate in my life, and the ones that don't make any sense whatsoever, I'll just keep them on shelf. If they ever make sense to me, then I'll visit them.
Honestly, I don't really consider myself to be a religious person. I feel like I tell people I'm spiritual. Like, I more believe in, I guess, the energy of life as my higher power. And instead of believing in like heaven or hell, I guess I believe more so in karma. Like, you put out good energy, that's more than likely the environment you'll create for yourself and the energy you'll receive back.
What caused you to switch from the religion you were raised with to the religious views you hold currently?
I was in college, and I just kind of knew Catholic because I went to school for so long in Catholic school, like from 4th grade on to senior year of high school. So I was like, well, I'll give the Catholic Church a try. And I met my future wife, and I've been Catholic since 1996.
Without getting too woo-woo on you, I would say that's what my daughter calls my knower. The internal compass that tells you what you feel like is wrong, what you feel like is right, and what is for you. And I believe that everybody has one of these things. I think we just disagree on maybe where they came from, and thus organized religion is born. So in my adulthood, probably in my early 20s, I had quite a few friends who were adamant about talking to me about religion and helping me find some kind of faith. And while I didn't necessarily agree with everything all of them were telling me, I did feel like I needed something else in my life. I needed some kind of faith. I needed to have a belief system that I prescribed to that I felt like was my own and answer, the questions that everybody wants answered. And so I kind of just started learning. When I want to know about something that I don't already know about, or I wasn't raised with, or don't know how to do, or wasn't taught, I just start reading. And so that's literally what I did. I read and read and read and read everything I could find. And I went to church with a few people, and quite a few times. And I think gradually over a period of time, probably maybe like my entire 20s, it took me a while. I'm not somebody that decides something quickly anyway, but religion is not something I think anybody should ever just like slap on like a bumper sticker. And I just kind of stayed where it felt right when I got there. And the beliefs kind of just tell themselves to you, I think. I don't think you can make up your own, and I don't, they have to come from somewhere. So I would say that's kind of how it happened.
Coming from a society that is heavily religious into the States where you are allowed to have your beliefs, practice any beliefs that you want, and stay, as long as you stay within the law. It was a big eye-opener. In some sense, it was confusing, somewhat scary, and then you have to be much, much more responsible with your choices. That's the best way I can describe it. It's that you don't have a guide book that you have to abide by. You have to make responsible choices. So that was one adjustment that I had to make. I had to learn how to practice this freedom and yet make responsible choices. And then at some point, I started attending a Baptist church. Not for long though, just to get an idea. And then I quickly figured out, yes, it's not much different than Islam. They have their differences, but at the end of the day, there are core beliefs that are exactly identical. And just like any other religion that I have read, it's all about dogma. This is the way that is done, and this is the only right way to do it. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe that there is just one right way. As big as the universe is, that just doesn't make sense. That's why I can say it. And then after that came about marriage, family, raising children, and my denial getting deeper and deeper, and my dysphoria getting worse and worse as time goes by. And I'm not sure what exactly prompted me, but for quite a few years, until the point I started my transition, I attended Mormon church, and it's a very cishet set of beliefs. I tried. I gave it a try. I gave it a go, and the longer I got myself tangled in the Mormon church, the more I realized that to me it doesn't make sense. I'm not trying to disrespect or anybody or say their beliefs are wrong. Their beliefs is working for them. Good for them. I'm happy for them that they have some structure that works for them. It just wasn't for me. It didn't work with the way that my mind works So, yeah, born into Islam, went to Baptist, and then Mormon, and then I got to a point that I just had to come to realization that I cannot keep lying to myself. And it doesn't matter what the religions are saying. It doesn't matter what beliefs are out there. I know what is going on in my heart, and I know what is the right thing to do for me. If it's going to be interpreted as, you know what's going on in your heart, that's God talking to you, so be it. That's what God was saying to me, to believe in yourself. You are the way you are for a reason. Don't deny yourself.
Well, I feel like even though I was one of those kids where we grew up, and me and my brothers, like every Sunday, despite the fact that we didn't want to wake up early, we had to get up. It was just something we knew to be expected. So I feel like I would grow up, and when I was young, I'd be like, "Oh no, Mom, I'm sick. I don't want to go to church." I was a kid that like sat in church, and my favorite parts were coloring the drawing books, singing, and eating the freaking grape juice and crackers. Like, and I hate to say that, but I don't know. As much as I grew up in the church, I felt like most of my spiritual experience or my religious experience was me trying to please everybody and what they expected of me. For some reason, as a kid, like me growing up, even though I enjoyed some of the lessons and stuff, the idea never completely clicked. I can't ever say that my faith in Christianity was ever something that was solid. Like I always had people asking me, when was your come to Jesus? When did you accept Jesus Christ as your savior? And I remember a few times, like when I was baptized, where I was like, this is the moment. But I feel like I was always waiting for that moment to completely surrender. And it just never truly, I can't say it ever genuinely happened for me. And so I feel like as I got older, especially probably whenever I was in middle school and kind of getting into high school and kind of coming into my own like consciousness and the feeling that, life isn't the rules that happen in my household and life isn't what my parents tell me, I started kind of seeing that the people who were leading the churches, like our pastors and our group leaders, like they were people too, but despite the fact that they were people, they often kind of felt like they had more power than they really did in their positions. And so there were a lot of times where I saw people choosing a path that kind of abandoned like that whole what a Christian is. Like a Christian is someone who loves unconditionally and forgives and realizes that everybody sins. And, you start, especially being somebody in the LGBTQ community, like having people tell me that the way I was worse than the sins that they were creating, as if like certain sins merited more punishment or more weight of, shamefulness. Like I had a best friend of mine in high school straight up tell me to my face that I was abomination. And I was like, man, fuck you and your Christian ass bullshit. So excuse my language, but it was a lot of moments like that really, like, I guess solidified the way I felt. And I feel like I listened more to my intuition, than anything. And I just couldn't, I know that the people weren't necessarily the religion, but at the same time, I also realized that the religion was more than likely created by men, and I'd rather just be a good person and follow my intuition and follow how I treat people, not because I'm getting into heaven, but just because people deserve it, So I feel like that was a big separation. I also had a really big moment where I was sitting in church not too long after I was baptized, and the preacher, me and my mom now goes to one of the semi-larger churches, not quite a mega church, but the preacher up there, he's got his crowd. So he's feeling himself, the choir gets off and he like shuffles onto the stage and he's like, these are my people. So, so he got on stage and he got super hyped and he did this sermon, and somehow it turned into like this anti-LGBT like sermon where he was angry at Disney Channel because I think it was Dog with a Blog or something like that. I don't know. It was some kind of show. One show displayed a family that had two moms. And so he kind of got off on a tangent like that. And it's like, those are things that people need, because people actually, like, that represents people for who they are. And there are people sitting in this group that you're leading spiritually, and you're telling them that they should be ashamed of themselves. You're telling them that Disney Channel is the enemy for showing children that this is normal, this is love, this is, and then he also said something that was kind of transphobic, really homophobic, but it kind of got into like that specific situation, that scenario with the two moms made him go into the whole genitalia. Of course, two women can't be together because you're lacking, the typical lightning strike, anger, hate speech that most people go for. And so it was stuff like that that kind of made me realize, I don't have to believe these things and succumb to this type of oppression just because they say I'm going to go to heaven or hell. I can be a good person because I want to. I can put out good energy because I want to. So that was kind of the big moment for me.
Do you feel that your views on the religion you were raised with have differed since discovering your gender?
Yeah, I would say so. I think whenever you are part of the church that tells you you're wrong, you have to kind of take a look and say, do I really want to be part of this church? And my wife is Catholic, so I think she's the strongest force for keeping me in the church. And I think probably the biggest thing is the church has been so messy socially that it makes it a lot easier to call the bullshit flag. And I think if I wasn't married to my partner, I probably would be angry. But as I still am in the church, I kind of want to be that rebellious entity to kind of say, yeah, we need to rethink this. This doesn't make sense. And I've definitely questioned if I wanted to be in the church based on some of the different groups. But I think the biggest impetus is a church in Boston called the Paula Center and an organization within the Catholic Church called New Age Ministry, who is LGBT focused. So because of that, I kind of want to be a part of that movement and try to make some kind of substantive change. If I hadn't found those groups, I think that also would have been a big impetus for me maybe to, move in another direction. But as it was, I found those two groups, and it's kind of why I'm still where I am.
Not really. And that is because I had very, very conflicting views with Islam prior to my transition. So, and yes, the Islamic governments, they tend to deny LGBTQ people's existence. And, to my knowledge, I could be wrong, but to my knowledge that, they take it as if you are against God's will. You are, I don't even know how to put it to words. It's like your existence is invalid. And, some extremist governments go as far as executing LGBTQ people. So I don't think that I had conflicting views with Islam just because of my gender identity. It was more that I have conflict with dogmatic views. Just the whole idea of my way is the right way and everything else is wrong just doesn't go with me. Even if I don't know any other way, that doesn't mean there is no other way. So, and definitely post-transition, it's, I have no reason to go towards Islam. It's like I stepped away from it for good reasons. I never practiced it in my idea for valid reasons, because practicing it would have been a major conflict with my core beliefs.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just again, because even before I discovered my gender, just being in the queer community as a whole, there were too many painful moments, and I just felt like if the religion were true, I know they say it's a test and that's how Jesus wants things to be, but I just couldn't That was just too much pain, and I've seen too many people like hurt themselves and go down sad paths that can't be changed. And I was like, I don't know, I just couldn't. There was just the connection just never happened for me, and so it did make me look at it differently. And even there were a few times after I began my transition, once I had realized who I was and my body and my soul, where I kind of tried to reconnect that. I wanted to be the good Christian kid when I was out here in college, but I still felt like, I think the last time I ever tried doing that, I sat down with this woman because I was like, here I am, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to have my moment where I'm really going to relinquish like everything, this burden, this sin to Jesus. And I sat down with that lady and I told her who I was, point blank. And she was like, well, you got to let all that go. Jesus is going to help you let that go. And I'm like, no, Jesus should love me for who the fuck I am. Like, he created me. Like, they say, the thing is, God created you in his image. And it's like, I know everybody wants to believe that God's not flawed, but no one's met God. And it's like, maybe the flaws are part of the perfection. So, and I never went back. Like, I don't know. I just never went back. I was like, all right, I just couldn't do it. So.
Do you feel that your views on religion in general have differed since discovering your gender?
I don't think they've really changed. I think I'm more accepting of other groups. I mean, let's back up a sec. So, pre-transgender in college, I studied philosophy as a minor, and as my bachelor's is in, I literally have a BS in sociology. That's what you get when you drop out of engineering. So I have a bachelor of science in engineering, sociology, and a minor in philosophy. So after college, or during college, I had kind of a spiritual crisis where I kind of would consider myself either agnostic or maybe atheist. And what I found was I just was missing a lot. It just felt very hollow. And because it felt so hollow, I had to kind of do something. And so I kind of came to the realization that religion, in a lot of ways, can be less about logic and more about maybe wisdom or philosophy or spirituality, that sometimes being in a religion isn't necessarily a logical experience. It's more of a spiritual and moral experience. So because of that experience and actually losing my faith and kind of finding again, I have more of a utilitarian view of religion. And so I kind of look at all different spirituality and things and kind of am accepting of, all different groups and whatnot. I don't believe the one path theology. I think that ties into Gnosticism, the idea that we have the secret knowledge that will lead to your salvation. And with this knowledge, you can only get it here. Because everybody, there's two things in Christianity that I've noticed. Every church is the true church, and every church is the one church that will lead you towards salvation. Every denomination, I've noticed. Not every, but most of them, I've noticed that. So I think maybe God is bigger than just one universal, or not universal, but one singular image. I think God is more, maybe shows themselves in different ways. And I think that's kind of the polytheism we see in the world. So I think at my core, I'm probably kind of Unitarian because I don't really believe in the one path. But I do think that spirituality is key to the human condition, finding something and believing in something bigger than yourself so that you can kind of find that fulfillment. And I think in a lot of secularism, you kind of don't get that in a secularist. In a humanist perspective, I think the mission becomes a form of religion. And I kind of think politics has become the new secular religion, in terms of what I've seen and how, like, on both sides, on the left and on the right. So I think in a way in our society, even if we don't define a religion, we kind of create one. We try to focus on the Gnostic and less on the morality, whereas I try to focus more on the morality and less on the theologic. Not that it's not important, it's just that I see a lot of decisions being made in the church that are inherently immoral but have a Judeo-Christian perspective, but from a utilitarian or Kantian perspective, are not ethical. I think the church makes mistakes, and I think as parishioners, we have to call out those mistakes. And I think that the church is kind of bowed down to the very conservative right and less on the left. And I think a lot of the church's decisions are very black and white without looking at the complexities of a particular issue or topic. So the church, I think, tends to ignore some of the things that, some of the precepts, like, say, gay marriage, for instance. If two people are loved and want to be committed or whatever, why is that wrong? And I think the church kind of misses the point about the whole love part instead of focusing on more dogmatic terms.
I would say not at all, actually, because gender and gender identity and everything in that realm is not really something that played largely into my faith. My particular belief system is that our Creator, whatever you believe that our Creator is, did this. It's a loving entity that did it out of love and with love in mind. And there's no room for, in my belief system anywhere, for there to be anything that judges harshly or unfairly, or discriminates or anything like that. I don't believe that's part of it. I don't think that's how it works. So I don't really think it matters what your gender is. I personally don't believe that it matters what your gender identity is or what you change it to. If you feel like it needs to change at some point in your life and you realize, this was my gender identity, but now it's this. If that happens more than once, it happens. I don't think any of these things, for me personally, really play into my faith or how I view it. I feel like no matter who I am, whether it's FTM or cisgender male, is going to have any effect on my afterlife or anything like that. I think it's a hard thing to say other than that right there. It doesn't play into it at all for me. Nothing changed.
Yes, I have realized that not all religion are so black and white. Some religion have branches that allow colors, within their community. And, that speaks a lot about those religions. Just the fact that they are inclusive and they welcome people for being people, regardless of who you are on the inside or outside. They still welcome you because you are a person. I have respect for those religions, and the ones that they are very black and white, and they are strictly cishet. Not so much. I look at them as it's just not for me. It's not something I would ever want to be involved with, regardless, my gender identity. Being transgender or being straight is just, if you are not inclusive and if you don't accept people for who they are, then I believe you are actually going against God's will for making people unique. Everyone is unique. Everyone has their own qualities, their own goods and bads. And if you can't accept everyone, you're actually not appreciating God's work.
I don't know. Not necessarily, just because I guess I would have to know more about all organized religions in general. I typically take a position of having a broad perspective on everything. And so I do like to look into other religions. Like some religions that I've looked into is a little bit of Hindu, and then I have some family who are also Muslims. Like I have family in Houston. I have one aunt in Houston, and she practices, the faith of Islam. And so, I feel like a lot of it is the same teachings, but then I feel like a lot of the teachings also depend on the teachers, So, but personally, I feel like a lot of religions can be oppressive in the wrong hands and in like the wrong like teaching minds. So I kind of stay away from it because I also feel like, when discovering yourself, like the world is constantly changing, society is constantly changing, evolution, like within like who we are as beings is always changing. So I don't know. I don't ever think that I would just fall into a religion, because at the same time, I feel like a lot of religion comes with traditions, and I'm the kind of person that thinks traditions are meant to be broken. Like traditions provide you with structure, but traditions aren't always meant to uphold the sand of time. So, I was gonna say I'm not really religious, but I do carry on my little Ganesh, just because he's the mover of obstacles. So, I feel like there's been a lot of times where I've let stuff get in my way, and I have failed to follow my intuition. So I keep this more as like a totem or a talisman to remind me of my own capabilities and the fact that I can, hope for better things and make them happen with whatever resources I have on my own. But I mean, I feel like that's as far as I go with organized religion. I'm just like, well, that's nice.
Do you feel that your relationship with your religion has changed?
A little bit. I would say I'm a bit more on the progressive side, because Catholics kind of go from social justice to conservative asshole. So I would say that I'm more on the left side that's more open. Not that I wasn't before. I'm just more in that camp than I was before, maybe. And I'm the kind of the first person to raise my hand and go, "Excuse me, that's bullshit." So I would say I'm kind of the rebellious Catholic. I don't know. I just kind of think that there needs to be a lot of change. And for me, being Catholic has been very difficult.
Like this episode? Tell someone about it. Have any questions or concerns? Please feel free to send an email to transfieldguide@gmail.com. Also be sure to subscribe to keep up with the latest episodes. Stay safe, and remember, I'm proud of you.